The automatic doors of St. Mercy General Hospital sighed open at 11:47 p.m., letting in a gust of cold December air that smelled faintly of snow and exhaust from the ambulance bay. You stepped inside alone, your sneakers squeaking on the polished linoleum. The lobby was two bright, fluorescent lights humming overhead like a swarm of tired insects. A single security guard sat behind the reception desk, head nodding forward, chin almost touching his chest. The Christmas tree in the corner blinked red and green in slow, mechanical rhythm. No one else was here, not a soul. You told yourself it was normal for a Tuesday night in winter. People weren't rushing to emergency rooms unless they had to. Still, the silence felt thick, like the building was holding its breath. You pressed the elevator button for the 4th floor, intensive care. Your mother had been moved there that afternoon after her surgery. The doors slid open with a soft ding, revealing a car that smelled faintly of bleach and something sweeter, almost metallic. You stepped in, pressed 4, and watched the doors close on the empty lobby. The elevator climbed slowly, too slowly. Between the 2nd and 3rd floors it paused, lights flickering once, then steadied. You caught your reflection in the polished metal walls, pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion, coat still dusted with snow. When the doors finally opened on 4, the hallway stretched out long and dim. Only every 3rd light was on, casting pools of yellow on the floor and leaving wide shadows in between. A nurse's station stood directly ahead, but no one sat behind it. Charts lay open, a half-empty coffee cup still steaming beside a keyboard. You cleared your throat. "Hello." Your voice echoed and died. Somewhere far down the corridor, a monitor beeped steadily, beep, 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 like a metronome keeping time for something you couldn't see. You started walking toward room 412. The door to 412 was ajar. You pushed it open gently. Your mother lay in the bed closest to the window, eyes closed, oxygen tubes in her nose, IV lines snaking into both arms. The heart monitor traced a steady green line. She looked small under the thin hospital blanket, smaller than you remembered. You pulled the plastic chair closer and sat, taking her hand. It was cool but not cold. You whispered that you were here, that everything was going to be okay. The room smelled of antiseptic and the faint lavender lotion she always used. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall in thick, silent flakes, erasing the parking lot lights one by one. After a few minutes, you noticed the 2nd bed in the room was empty, sheets stripped, mattress bare. A faint outline remained where a body had lain, a shallow depression as though someone had only just left. You must have dozed off, head resting on the edge of her bed. You woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway, soft, deliberate, like someone walking in socks. They passed the door, paused, then continued on. You sat up, rubbing your eyes. The clock on the wall read 1:13 a.m. The hallway was empty again, but now the nurse's station light was off completely. Only the exit sign glowed red at the far end. You stood, stretched your stiff back, and stepped out to find someone, anyone, to ask about pain medication timing. Your mother had started shifting uncomfortably in her sleep. The corridor felt longer than before. Doors on both sides were closed, most with curtains drawn across the small windows. Every few rooms a monitor beeped its lonely rhythm, but no voices, no call bells, no murmur of nighttime care. Halfway down, you passed an open supply closet. Inside, a metal cart stood loaded with linens, but something lay on top. A child's stuffed bear, brown fur matted, one button eye missing. It hadn't been there earlier. You were sure of it. You reached the nurse's station and leaned over the counter. The computer screen was still on, displaying a patient list. Your mother's name was there, room 412, status, stable. But every other name on the floor had the same discharge time stamped beside it, 23:59. All of them discharged at exactly 1 minute to midnight. You scrolled up, 37 patients on this floor earlier today. Now only your mother remained. A chill crawled up your spine. You called out again, louder this time. "Hello, nurse, anyone?" From somewhere deeper in the wing came an answer, not words, but the slow, rhythmic squeak of wheels. like a gurney rolling across linoleum. It grew nearer, then stopped. Silence. You backed away from the station, heart thudding. When you returned to 412, the door was closed. You were certain you left it open. You turned the handle slowly. The overhead light was off now. Only the glow from the heart monitor illuminated the room in pools in green. Your mother still slept, but the empty bed across from her was no longer empty. Someone sat on the edge of it, back to you, head bowed. A patient in a hospital gown, thin shoulders visible beneath the fabric. You couldn't tell if it was a man or woman. They were perfectly still. You flicked the light switch. Nothing happened. "Excuse me," you whispered. "This is my mother's room." The figure didn't move. You stepped closer, reaching for the call button on the bed rail. As your fingers brushed it, the figure turned its head, just enough for you to see the side of its face in the monitor's glow. Skin gray, lips blue, eyes wide open and filmed over. Dead, unmistakably dead. Yet it was looking straight at you. You stumbled backward, knocking the plastic chair over with a clatter. The figure rose slowly, joints cracking like dry branches. It took one step toward you, bare feet silent on the floor. The heart monitor behind you began to race. Your mother, not the thing. Beep, 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 beep. You lunged for the door, yanked it open, and ran into the hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered violently overhead as you passed beneath them, some popping and going dark. You didn't look back, but you heard it. The soft pad of feet behind you, unhurried, keeping perfect pace no matter how fast you ran. You reached the elevator and slammed the button. The doors stayed shut. You hit it again and again. Come on, come on. A ding from the stairwell door at the opposite end. It swung open on its own. You bolted through it. The stairs were concrete, cold air rising from below. You took them two at a time, 3 flights down to the second floor, lungs burning. When you shoved through that door, you found yourself in pediatrics. The hallway here was painted with faded murals, smiling suns, cartoon animals, rainbow balloons. But the colors looked washed out under the emergency lighting. Cribs and small beds lined both sides, all empty. Stuffed animals lay scattered on the floor as if dropped in haste. A night light shaped like a rocket glowed faintly near the nurse's station. On the counter sat a child's chart, open to a page that read in neat handwriting, "Patient refuses to stay in bed after lights out. Keeps saying they're coming to tuck us in." You moved quickly past the station toward the elevators here. Maybe these worked. Behind you, small footsteps began to echo. Bare feet on tile, many of them, light and quick like children running. You didn't turn around. The elevator on pediatrics opened immediately. You dove inside and pressed L for lobby, then jammed the close button. As the doors slid together, you caught a glimpse down the hall. Dozens of children stood in the dim light, all in hospital gowns, all facing you. None older than 10. Their skin was pale, almost translucent. They didn't blink. They just watched as the doors shut. The elevator began its descent. You leaned against the wall, trying to catch your breath, telling yourself it was a nightmare, exhaustion, anything but real. Then the lights inside the car went out. In the darkness, you heard breathing, close, not your own. A child's voice whispered right beside your ear, "Are you here to tuck us in?" The lights snapped back on. You were alone again. The elevator dinged and opened, not on the lobby, but on the basement level. A sign read, "Morgue/Pathology." Cold air rolled out, carrying the sharp smell of formaldehyde. You hesitated, then stepped out anyway. Better than going back up. You'd find another stairwell, get to the lobby from here. The basement corridor was narrow, pipes running overhead, dripping occasionally. Dim red bulbs glowed every 20 feet. Drawers lined one wall, stainless steel, name tags in small plastic holders. Most tags were blank. You walked quickly, shoes echoing. Halfway down, one drawer was pulled open 6 inches. A pale hand rested on the edge, fingers curled slightly. You kept moving. At the far end, a door-marked exit led to another stairwell. You pushed through. These stairs only went up 1 flight before ending at a heavy fire door labeled roof access. Alarm, WILL sound. You paused. An alarm would bring security, police, someone real. You shoved the bar. No alarm sounded. The door opened onto the snowy roof. Wind whipped across the gravel, stinging your face. The city lights spread out below, distant and indifferent. Snow swirled in eddies around air conditioning units and satellite dishes. You pulled out your phone to call 911. No signal, 0 bars. Footsteps crunched behind you on the gravel. You turned. The dead patient from your mother's room stood 10 feet away, snow collecting on its shoulders, hospital gown flapping in the wind. It tilted its head, studying you. More shapes emerged from the stairwell door. Children, nurses, orderlies, all in various states of decay, all moving with the same deliberate slowness. They began to walk toward you, spreading out in a semicircle. You backed away until your heels hit the low parapet at the roof's edge. 4 stories down, snow-covered ambulances, empty parking spaces. The figures stopped a few feet away. Dozens now, maybe 100, every patient, every staff member who had ever died here, it seemed. They didn't speak. They simply waited. Wind howled between the buildings. Then from the crowd, a familiar figure stepped forward, your mother. Not the frail woman in the bed upstairs, but younger, healthier, the way she looked 20 years ago. She wore the same gown as the others, but her eyes were clear, sad. She raised one hand toward you, palm up. "Come here, sweetheart," she said, voice soft, exactly as you remembered from childhood. "It's time to go to sleep." You shook your head, tears freezing on your cheeks. "No, you're still up there, you're alive." She smiled gently, not for long. Behind her, the others began to hum, a low, wordless lullaby that seemed to come from everywhere at once. You looked over the edge again. Snow was piling up fast now, erasing tire tracks, footprints, everything. Your phone buzzed suddenly in your hand. 1 bar, a text message from an unknown number. "Don't let them tuck you in." You stared at the screen. Another message appeared. "Get back to 412, now." You didn't question it. You pushed past the figures. They parted without touching you, and ran back through the roof door, down the stairs, through the morgue corridor where drawers now stood fully open and empty. Up the main stairs 2 at a time, past pediatrics where the children no longer stood in the hall. The 4th-floor elevator opened the moment you pressed the button. You rode it alone, watching the numbers climb. When the doors opened on 4, the lights were all on. Nurses bustled at the station. Monitors beeped normally. A doctor glanced up and nodded at you. Everything looked ordinary. You walked quickly to 412. Your mother lay exactly as you'd left her, breathing steadily. The second bed was still stripped and empty. No gray figures, no child's bare in the supply closet. Just a normal ICU room at 3:07 a.m. You sat beside her again, holding her hand, trying to convince yourself the last hours had been a hallucination born of exhaustion and fear. Her fingers twitched, her eyes opened slowly. "Hey, Mom," you whispered, relief flooding you. She looked at you for a long moment, then around the room, confused. "Where?" Her voice was hoarse. "Where is everyone?" You started to answer, but she squeezed your hand hard. "They told me," she rasped. "They told me you'd come up here alone. They said if I didn't go with them quietly, they'd bring you instead." Her heart monitor began to accelerate. "They're coming back at sunrise," she said, eyes wide, "to finish rounding." Outside the window, the snow had stopped. The sky to the east was already beginning to pale. You looked at the clock, 5:42 a.m. And in the hallway, very faintly, you heard the soft squeak of wheels beginning their slow approach.